All right, let's jump right into one of the most powerful, intense emotional journeys in all of ancient scripture. We're talking about the story of Hagar. It's this incredible arc from being a completely invisible servant to becoming the very first woman to get a direct divine promise. This is a story about hope, about devastating rejection, and about a life-changing encounter in the absolute middle of nowhere.
And it all kicks off right here, in the quiet, crushing desperation Sarai. Now, she and her husband Abram have been promised a huge family, but years have passed. Nothing. And you have to understand, in their culture, there was a kind of plan for this. A handmaid could have a child for her mistress. So when Sarai says this, it's not just sadness, it's the trigger for a decision that is going to change everybody's life forever.
So here's how we're going to walk through Hagar's story. We'll follow it in 5 key acts. We start with a desperate hope, then we see the rise of a servant's pride, which leads, of course, to the mistress's wrath. That forces a flight into nothingness, and it all culminates in an encounter with a God who sees. Okay, so let's paint the picture. 10 long years. They've been in Canaan for a decade, and that promised child? Still just a promise. So Sarai, she's watching her young Egyptian handmaid, Hagar, go about her duties, and this plan starts to form. A plan born out of that endless, silent waiting. Now, to really get Hagar's story, you have to understand the two worlds she's caught between. On the one hand, you've got Abram's camp. It's a place of community, of rules, warmth, belonging. But on the other hand, you've got the wilderness. Total chaos, deep solitude, a place of raw survival. Hagar is about to be ripped from one of these worlds and thrown headfirst into the other. So who is this person at the heart of the storm? Hagar. She's just a kid, really, maybe 15 years old. She's quiet, she's obedient, and she's learned to be a perfect reflection of her mistress, Sarai. She's totally loyal, but you get the sense that deep down there's this hidden ache, this longing to finally be seen as more than just a pair of hands. And then comes this moment, just thick with unspoken grief and desperate hope. Sarai literally brings Hagar to Abram. She is to be his wife, but for one reason and one reason only, to bear the heir that Sarai can't. Can you just imagine the suffocating weight in that tent? So Sarai's plan works. You could almost say it works too well and way too fast. Because as soon as life begins to stir inside Hagar, the entire power dynamic of this little community, it just gets turned completely on its head. I mean, the speed of it is just stunning. After a decade of nothing, Abram, at 85 years old, takes Hagar as his wife. And literally weeks later, she's pregnant. To everyone there, this must have felt like a massive sign from God. And this is the pivot point. In Hagar's young mind, this pregnancy isn't just biology, it's validation. She's thinking, wait a minute, Sarai waited all these years and couldn't, but I did, instantly. This has to mean I'm the one who's truly favored. And right there, in that thought, the obedient servant starts to see herself as the chosen one, and her pride is born. Of course, this newfound pride, it doesn't go unnoticed, and it sets the stage for the story's big climax. That desperate hope that Sarai had, it starts to curdle into this really bitter jealousy. Her pain finally has a target. And listen, Sarai is nobody's fool. She sees everything. The way Hagar carries herself now, a little taller, the way her eyes might linger a second too long, every little shift in posture, every lifted chin. It's like a fresh cut to Sarai, a reminder of her own barrenness. And finally, that jealousy just boils over. And the explosion is just volcanic. She storms over to Abram, her voice just cracking with grief and rage. And notice, she doesn't blame Hagar, not at first. She unleashes all of her pain on Abram, screaming, "This is your fault. May the Lord judge between us." Abram, well, he's caught right in the middle, and you get the sense he's just exhausted by it all. He makes a fateful choice. He basically just steps back. He tells Sarai, look, she's your maid. Do whatever you want with her. And with those words, he hands Hagar's entire fate back to her furious mistress. And just like that, Hagar's world completely collapses. The camp that had been her home, a complicated home, but still her home, is about to become a prison she has to escape. She's not just asked to leave, she's driven out by unbearable cruelty. The text itself is blunt. It just says, Sarai treated her harshly, We don't get the details, but man, we can imagine, right? The daily humiliations, the cutting words, the constant stripping away of her new status. The punishment is swift and it is brutal.
And it's just too much. It's too much for this pregnant teenager to take. So at dawn, she makes a choice. She runs. Clutching her belly, she just bolts from the only home she's ever known, running towards nothing, towards the vast, empty unknown.
She literally leaves the world of order and community behind and is just consumed by the chaos and solitude of the desert. She is totally alone, pregnant, and running from everything. For all intents and purposes, she's invisible now, erased. But it is right here, at her absolute lowest, at the very ragged edge of despair, that this story takes its most incredible turn. Because when no human being can see her, something else does. She's by a spring of water, and a divine messenger appears. And think about the first words spoken to her. Hagar, Sarai's maid. He calls her by her name and by her role. He sees her completely, who she is, where she came from, her whole identity, before he even asks the two biggest questions of her life. Where have you come from, and where are you going? So the angel gives her this really hard command. You have to go back. You have to submit. But right after that comes this jaw-dropping promise, a covenant made directly with her. Her, a runaway Egyptian servant. She's promised descendants too numerous to count, and a son. And her son is going to have a name that will forever be a memorial to this moment. Ishmael. In Hebrew, Yashmael. It means God hears. And why that name? The angel says it right out. Because the Lord has heard your suffering. All that pain, all those tears in the desert, they weren't silent, they were heard. Hagar's response. Wow. It's one of the most powerful moments in the whole story. She then gives God a name based on what just happened to her. El Roy. You are the God who sees me. The girl who felt invisible, who was thrown away and forgotten, realizes in this one moment that she was seen the entire time. And so she returns. She actually does it. She obeys. And now she's armed with a divine promise. She walks right back into that camp, back into Abram's house. And when he's 86 years old, she gives birth to Ishmael. The first part of that incredible promise made at a desert well is fulfilled. The boy whose name means God hears is born. Hagar's story really forces us to ask a pretty profound question, doesn't it? When we feel like we're at our lowest point, when we feel lost, rejected, completely invisible to the rest of the world, what new understanding, what unexpected promise might be waiting to be born in that exact moment of being truly seen?